The story begins in 2022. This year shows how overpopulation, climate change, and pollution have caused great harm to the environment. In New York, 40 million people live there. There are many rundown houses and many homeless people on the streets. Buildings, old cars, and train stations are almost in ruins. Nearly half of the population is unemployed. Only a few, the wealthiest, can live in large homes with clean water and good food. Most people who don't have much money must drink water from public taps and eat processed foods from a company called Soylent Corporation. This company makes two types of food, Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow, supposedly very energetic. Recently, they created a new product, Soylent Green, claimed to be more nutritious and made from plankton. But, as with other foods, there is often not enough, causing problems. We then meet Detective Robert Thorne of the New York Police Department. He lives in a small apartment with an older friend, Sol Roth, who was once a teacher and now helps Robert by reviewing old documents. Sol vividly remembers the time before these crises, when food was plentiful. Robert, however, doesn't show much interest in these past stories. When he goes out to work at night, he must carefully step over people sleeping on the stairs. The next day, a man named Gilbert, who lives in an old car, receives a meat hook from Donovan, a refined man who orders him to kill a wealthy lawyer named William Simonson. William lives in a luxurious apartment with his lover, Cheryl. These so-called furniture, like Cheryl, have no rights and pass from one owner to another. That afternoon, Cheryl and William's bodyguard, Tab, go out to buy food, which is scarce and expensive. Meanwhile, Gilbert enters William's home and kills him without resistance. Robert is called to investigate the murder. He speaks with Charles, the building manager, who says the security system failed. Robert meets Cheryl and Tab, but instead of conducting an in-depth investigation, the poorly paid detective takes advantage of the situation. He eats, drinks, and takes books from the apartment. Later, the cleaning crew, led by Wagner, removes William's body. Robert leaves as well, carrying a few items. Back in his room, he surprises Sol with the things he took without permission: real paper, pencils, soap, and 2 volumes of Soylent's oceanographic report. He also shows him something that greatly excites Sol: a bottle of strong liquor and a piece of meat. Later, Robert goes to work and sees many people waiting for money because their friends or relatives have recently died. He goes to his boss's office, Lieutenant Hatcher, and reports on the case. Robert thinks William was deliberately killed. It wasn't just a robbery, since nothing was missing and everything looked like the work of a professional. Also, the alarms weren't working and the bodyguard wasn't around. The next day, Robert continues investigating. He sees Tab leave his building and goes inside. He meets Marta, who lives with Tab, asks her questions, and looks around, finding nothing suspicious. Before leaving, he secretly steals a spoon with strawberry cake remnants, a very rare treat. Meanwhile, Sol stands in line to get water. That night, Robert and Sol have dinner with the items taken from William's place. After eating, Sol tells Robert that William was part of the Soylent Corporation's board. Sol can't believe they are tasting strawberries, a very expensive luxury. Later, Robert returns to William's home to speak with Cheryl. She is spending time with her friends. Robert takes her aside and asks about the people close to William. Cheryl mentions several influential figures, including New York's Governor Henry Santini. She says William was worried before he died and had taken her to a church. Suddenly, they kiss. At that moment, Charles enters and starts yelling at the women for doing nothing, becoming violent and hitting some of them. Robert intervenes and warns him not to hurt them. Charles and the other women leave. Cheryl, not wanting to be alone, asks Robert to stay the night. She offers him a hot shower and a delicious breakfast. Robert, delighted by such luxury, agrees. They share a romantic moment in the shower and enjoy very good food before Robert leaves at dawn. The next day, Robert goes to the Catholic church Cheryl mentioned. It's full of homeless people. He finds a priest and asks him what William confessed. The priest, tired and overwhelmed, barely remembers and only hints that the truth is very harsh. Soon after, Tab arrives at the church and kills the priest in the confessional so that he won't reveal what he knows. While Robert investigates this new murder, Governor Santini, who once worked with William, orders Donovan to stop the investigation. Donovan speaks with Hatcher, who agrees to close the case. Later, when Robert goes to tell Hatcher about new findings, he is shocked to learn the case is closed. Angry, he accuses Hatcher of corruption. Santini, upon hearing of Robert's defiance, instructs Donovan to have the detective killed. On the day Soylent Green is distributed, the police, including Robert, try to keep order during the riots. Large scoop trucks appear to disperse the crowd. Gilbert tries to shoot Robert, but instead hits innocent bystanders. Robert chases him and knocks him down, but Gilbert shoots Robert in the leg. Before Robert can question him, a police truck crushes Gilbert. After this, Robert goes to Tab's home and beats him, demanding to know who's behind all this. Tab remains silent. Martha tries to intervene, but Robert tells her to stay out of it. Then the detective returns to William's apartment, where Cheryl, who cares about Robert, helps with his wound, cleaning and bandaging it. They talk, and Cheryl says she might move out because a new tenant is coming. Although she likes Robert, she's unsure what to do. Robert leaves as the curfew sirens sound. Saul, determined to expose the truth, takes the oceanographic report to the special Supreme Exchange Library, where wise people help him discover two alarming facts. The seas are ruined and cannot produce the plankton that Soylent Green supposedly contains. He also learns that Soylent Green is made from something horrible human bodies. Saul realizes this explains the recent murder mystery. Terrified, he goes to a government-run clinic called Return Home, where people can end their lives because of the world's overcrowding. Robert returns home and finds a note from Saul. He rushes to the clinic but arrives too late. He sees Saul watching videos of Earth when it was still beautiful and unpolluted. Robert, watching from outside, weeps. In his final moments, Saul tells Robert what he discovered and urges him to present the evidence to the Council of Nations. Determined to know more, Robert hides in a disposal truck, leaving the clinic, and reaches a heavily guarded processing plant outside the city. There, he witnesses a horrific truth. Human corpses are turned into Soylent Green. Discovered, he fights two workers and escapes before the alarm sound. He then heads quickly to the Supreme Exchange Library to share his findings, but Tab and his men are waiting. Robert uses a public phone to call his friend Hatcher, but he's busy. He calls Cheryl, tells her he cares about her, and urges her to stay safe. Then he informs the police of what's happening and where he is. Suddenly, Tab's men spot him and begin chasing him through deserted streets, firing at him. Robert is shot in the side but still manages to reach a church, hiding among the homeless. When Tab enters, Robert attacks him. Though he's very weak, he finds an old knife and manages to defend himself. Finally, the police and paramedics arrive. As they prepare to take him away in an ambulance, Robert tells Hatcher the terrible secret he uncovered and begs him to make it public. The film ends with Robert shouting to everyone, "Soylent Green is people!